Dungeons and Dragons Adventurer. Issue 21. As we go through the 21st instalment of the magazine, we're going to get some cult classics, which hopefully is going to have the Temple of Elemental Evil by the look of that. Let's find out. And as always, for 90% of the issues, we're going to begin with the dice. Here we go. Nice little sort of marble effect in the silver and blue colour scheme of this adventure line. Although I do quite like this, quite solid bold numbers on them, easy to spot. But enough about them, onto the magazine. Today we're going to cover the Paladin class. We're also going to have a look at some cults, but it's got a lot of DM stuff, so we're going to finish off about making maps, or continue with it anyway, and do about the end game, and if you've got 2-part encounters, how to finish adventures sort of thing. And also a 2-part adventure. Plus these platinum coloured dice, apparently, which are as dazzling as the scales of Bahamut. Although I'm not sure what he is in D&D relevance, I only know him as a Final Fantasy summon. But anyway, we're going to start off with making our dungeon maps. This is quite helpful in giving you all the info you need, like what sort of size squares to have. So you ideally want 5x5, which is the amount of space a party member takes up, but you could have 10x10, so you can fit the whole dungeon on a map. Always draw north, always put a scale on it. Think about where you are, so what sort of features. If you're in a crypt, it would have sort of mausoleums. An underground lich's lab or wizard study or stuff would have spellbook rooms and a study room and so on. And then just how many rooms and how many levels. So like an elven crypt will just have a couple of rooms, as we've seen previously, whereas a dwarf stronghold will have multiple layers, multiple rooms. And you'll be able to find suitable maps in the Dungeons & Dragons Adventure magazine or in hardcover D&D adventures or for online map makers. So you'll find lots of maps anywhere to either use or adapt as you want. And the most important point here, think about the layout. Don't make them too linear. Some of the old ones we used to make when I was younger, very, very interesting in how linear they were. I like you'd get something like this. And this isn't the worst one I found. There was one that literally had 30 rooms all in one line, and that was it. But this map doesn't have a lot of the features they should have here, such as put some description or some objects in there. So you want to have some pillars, you want to have some different levels. Even if it's a 1-floor dungeon, it says about here you can have rooms at different elevation, which can provide some interesting combat situations. You know, and you see here, they should decorate the rooms, not have these plain, exactly square boxes for what I presume was a dungeon. Also, multiple entrances and exits is always good, as well as making sure if you've got any big creatures, they've got an exit they can actually use. Reading the room kind of talks about describing rooms as well. I thought it was going to be about reading the players. Actually, it's about talking about rooms. So when they walk into a room, describe it a little bit so every room isn't the same. Something familiar, like if they explore a kitchen, it's just got a little phrase here about you describe the kitchen in brief details, but the players will know it's a kitchen. Whereas rooms in a cavern, they don't know what it's for, so you describe the room a bit more. So roughly its size, its lighting, any features that might be featured in the room. Temperature, creatures, stuff like that. Always stick to stuff like small, medium and large though. Never go, oh, the room is 9 feet by 9 feet, because apparently that will bore players over. There's a helpful little box over the page that tells you the sort of way to describe your rooms. You know, up there it mentions how if one of your rooms in the cave system is full of white porous rock, be consistent, they're all going to be full of that rock. Obviously down here it says you only really want to mention stuff in the room if it's useful. Don't spend ages describing a massive ornate wardrobe if it's just there as a prop and nothing else. But you want to mention important areas of interest at the end to keep them fresh in players' minds. Make sure that any immediate threats you mention to the players, it says like a dragon, but yeah, anything dangerous the players obviously see straight away unless it's a hidden danger. And then near the end, mention any visible exits from the room and just exit with a question. So, what would you do now? Or rather, what do you do now? What would you do now? Eventually, though, the players will do all the rooms and you get to the end game. So this is actually a bit of both in the ways I thought it'd be. It's talking about ending the adventure completely, but also talk about ending your session. So, well, the whole main bit of this is about you're running your session with the time available. So you might do a couple of shortcuts to make sure it fits in the session. So if there's a couple of guards guarding your big bad and time's running out, you might have a few less hit points so the players can take them out easier and quicker. Alternatively, if it's quite close to the end and you've got quite a big dramatic plan for that room, you might decide to the guards a bit stronger so they hold off the players a bit more. So as combat finishes, then suddenly the players are like, oh, we've run out of time, we'll have to finish this tomorrow. What a cliffhanger. These guys obviously managed to finish their story. They're not waiting on anything, including Mr. Lovely Wooden Screen there. And this cup here, which I hope will be a future gift, because I keep seeing it in all the pictures. Overleaf, we find the ultimate pun, as the wrapping up section features a spider, but reading a story, as it winds a web over there, maybe. So at the end of the adventure anyway, this is quite a nice one for DMs, talking about how to wrap up. So you want to finish with some sort of epilogue to let the players know what's happened, get through their treasure splitting or collecting or whatever they're going to do now. Mechanically wise, you'd let your players know how close they are to the next level up, recap any important information, and then you can ask your players what they want to do, so they can either go straight to another adventure or they can do a bit of downtime activities. And they can ask any questions, and this last bit is for DM. Consider asking for feedback, so what they like best you can do again, what they like worst maybe you won't do, and maybe it might just help with your future sessions. Stuff like this might be, there's lots of pausing when you're trying to sort out a music playlist or something, and if that's the case, maybe you might just not have the playlist or have it on an auto repeat or delegate for someone else. One of your feedbacks might be, you didn't let me play a paladin because you don't know how to. Well, good news, buddy. Here's a paladin class. Start with it just as a little talk about the sort of paladins you might have. Dwarf sneaking into an orc warband in the middle of the night. Some elf with silver hair just constantly stabbing at a giant. Generally, a lot of guys like this. You'll choose the Pantheon for the paladin, which is going to be back from Lore C, Faction 7, Pantheon of the Gods. Okay, so as a quick aside, I was just looking back at this section and I actually discovered now Bahamut. So he has been mentioned before. I just sort of overlooked him the first time. So I know what he is now. Didn't mention it yet, but I'm pretty sure paladins can only be lawful good, or at least they were in an old video game I used to play. Let's see what it says over the page. So I still don't see anything that specifically limits what alignment you can be, but everything in here is always saying about how the paladins are good, they fight against evil, hold the highest standards, choose the lesser of two evils if they have to. That's to do with the paladin's oath. All paladins make an oath, which gives them power and more power at level 3. But one of the things about the oath is they're sworn to uphold it, and they will do their best unless you've got the lesser of two evils or similar situations, in which case they might go to a cleric of the pantheon they follow or to another paladin of the same faith just to get a pardon or a blessing or forgiveness. But if they willingly do it and no sign of repentance, the consequences can be more serious. So at the DM's discretion, they might be forced to abandon the path of the paladin, or they might become an oathbreaker paladin, which is covered in a future article. Paladins are trained in lots of weapons, and they have magical powers, so heal the sick and injured, smite the wicked and the undead. These will be covered in the paladin features, although not on this first page, because as normal, this is just a bit of a description. It just talks about how most paladins are adventurers, or rather, if you become a paladin, very likely going to be an adventurer, because then you're on the front lines battling evil. The first feature to look at is Divine Sense. When a paladin uses this, it can detect any celestials, fiends or undead within 60 feet of them if it's not behind total cover. They know the type, but they don't know exactly the identity. Such if it was a vampire, you wouldn't know it was a vampire. You wouldn't know it's vampire Count Strahd from Zaharij. You just know there's an undead. Or any place or object that's been consecrated or desecrated within that radius too. Doesn't specify if they know exactly where it is or just know there is something within 60 feet. And they can do it up to the number of times of 1 plus their charisma modifier. Such as our Orc Paladin. Well, so we've finally got an Orc now. Our Orc is also going to be able to lay on hands, which can heal up to 5 hit points times the number of the Paladin level. So because we're going to have a second level, going to be able to heal up to 10 hit points with lay on hands. Although for every 5 hit points expended, they can also cure a disease or poison. And as we said, we're second level, so we're going to get more Paladin features. And one of these is the fighting style. So your Paladin can have a defensive style, which gives bonus for wearing armour. A dueling style, so bonus for damage with a weapon in one hand. Great weapon fighting, which gives you an extra reroll with versatile or two-handed weapons. And protection, which lets you give disadvantage to people attacking a friend in nearby proximity. Well, within 5 feet, but you have to have a shield. So obviously that's sticking your shield out to protect them, say. Although interesting, at the start of the second level page, it says, their spellcasting abilities get better. I haven't seen any mention of spellcasting yet in the first, so unless you don't have any first level spellcasting as a paladin. But as you can see, you do get some second level spellcasting. Covering the spellcasting, we can see that paladins are going to use charisma as the modifier for casting their spells. Doesn't really talk about much more. That whole paragraph is just explaining about using charisma as the modifier. The rest is all the same as all the other classes, so the spell save DC 8 plus proficiency plus charisma modifier. Doesn't say anywhere how many spells they can get, how many they can prepare, what way they do them. Hopefully the character sheet will probably have more info. This just says they cast spells of charisma. They get the standard hit point increase for second level, and they get this divine smite, which lets them deal extra damage by expending spell slots on their attacks. and more additional damage if it's an undead they've used it on as well. But now it's lore time, and for this we're looking at cults. So most of the cults here are going to follow some sort of fiend or aberrations, ancient lich, or just ancient evils. They'll be everywhere. They're enemies of low and high level adventurers alike. They're just viewed as extremists. You can't reason with them. They'd engage in fringe theories, conspiracy theories, twisted views of reality. And they're everywhere because there's so many gods and conflicting dogmas that they'll follow. Various sizes, you can have a handful of people to like a massive underbelly of a city full of thousands of them. Lots of cults, almost an infinite number, I guess. Or just so many, it's impossible to list them all. But over the page, they're going to put all the notable ones. To start with, the Ashmadi. We've covered these guys already, so I won't go much into them. But next off, Cult of the Dragon. Recognise our purple robes. Been around for a long time, founded by the wizard Samaster. And used to like fulfilling dark prophecies from Dracoliches, but more recently have turned to following Tiamat, the Dragon Queen. Then we have the cults of Elemental Evil, which is actually 4 different cults, one for each elemental plane. I don't know how it links together, but I did have an old PC game, Temple of Elemental Evil. I never really ever got there. I always got murdered just at random encounters, but one day. And we finally have these Knights of the Black Sword, who are a secret society occultist from the Frozen Wastes, following Levistus, the archdevil who rolls Stygia. And most of the time, they normally would have been freezing to death, and he would have entered their mind and saved them in return for them promising themselves to him. Before today, we're going back to the Ashmadi as we move on to our Dancing with Devils 2-part adventure. So this is part 1, and as normal, this is for the Dungeon Master's eyes only, so use the chapters to just skip ahead. And this is an extended quest, so it's a 2-parter, starting with this one. It's just going to be, the Ashmadi got a new ritual. I think you're going to have to disrupt it, but they're finding ways to possess people. So many clerks and bureaucrats have been followed, and recently they've all started disappearing. Even like beggars from the streets have started going vanishing. So the party needs to find out why. And we're going for tracking Ashmadi hideout in the sewer, which I don't know if it's going to be anywhere near the previous sewer. We'll find out. So the encounter is going to begin with Real Vanis. She's the squire of Sir Laniver Strow, and she's going to come find the party to bring them to him to start the encounter. Which basically is going to be in the Temple of Tyr. She'll take you there to meet him, and he'll take you to a side room to talk to you all. Firstly, he actually kind of asks you about your motives for being adventurers and tries to suss out if your motives are pure. Because I guess if you're not, he probably won't let you take the task or won't ask you to do the task. But he does have suspicions of an Ashmadi plot, which is why he wants you guys to help. A lot of people in the city have been threatened and extorted by the cult, and then recently they've all started disappearing, so it's very obvious they've been kidnapped. They did manage to capture a few, but these guys just burnt into flames, so they couldn't get any information out of them. But one of the kidnapped men did come home. Laniver went to see him himself and got no information out, saying, oh, he'd just gone to meet a lover in secret. Laniver knows it's a lie, which is why he's hired the party. He's going to pay him 250 gold to find out where the Ashmadi hideout is, using this guy, and because they're not associated with the Order, this NPC is going to have no idea. To make it a compelling plot as well, and I guess inspire the party to do well, you could make an NPC they like be one of the people who's been kidnapped. You know, say the party were meant to meet him in the city, and when he didn't turn up, that's when Real turns up to bring them along with her. Anyway, if you do accept the adventure, you're going to get Holy Water Flask each, so you've got another nice magic item here, only useful against fiends or undead, and you'll get 1 sending stone, with the other being held by Laniver, who advises you to use it to call for reinforcements before you go into the hideout. I wonder if that'll be relevant later. So we're getting to kind of the main bit to start the adventure. We've got the sending spell here, which is what the sending stones cast. We've also got the arcane spell, arcane eye spell over here. Haven't seen him mention that yet. But anyway, as that happens, we're going to get a lot of DC checks now, and a lot of role playing with the party and what they want to do. Not much, not any combat yet. But so the guy we want to meet is possessed by the spirit of a bearded devil, waiting orders. So you can do a DC 10 stealth check to peek on him without being noticed. A DC 12 perception check. You'll notice he's got these burns on the back of his neck. It's part of the ritual. A DC 13 religion check identifies where they're from, so that it's following Asmodeus. A DC 15 dexterity check with thieves' tools to pick the locks. A DC 12 perception check. If you sniff his clothes, you'll get a tinge of sulphur. Eventually you'll get a letter which is going to get him to leave in the night. A DC 12 history check will let the party realise it refers to a statue in town that was destroyed during a fight, when it says to meet by the destroyed statue, the giant shattered. If he doesn't know about the party and he goes there, A DC 10 group stealth check will let you follow him secretly. At the Shattered Giant, he's going to meet this woman who's Amanda Lightkeep, who sent a letter. If he arrives as planned, she'll take the information. If he warns her that, oh, these adventures are tailing me because he's been discovered, then she'll try to hide the fact that she's got the information. But a DC 14 insight check reveals that she's furious. If he doesn't arrive for whatever reason, after now she gives up and leaves. And the party can attempt to tail her to the hideout. They need a DC 11 stealth check to not be noticed, or a DC 16 stealth check if she's expecting them. But all this lets the story continue, so even if he knows the party are there, he'll still go to meet her. He'll just say, oh, be warned as people about if they're trying to sneak after her but she notices them, she won't stop and confront them or try and run. She'll still just lead them on, but then set up a trap for them. I'm guessing this ambush only applies if she knows they're there. And finally, if somehow the players are quite dense, they've missed all the clues, so they've killed this bearded devil guy, failed to locate the hideout, you're going to get Druhilda, who's the dwarf from Encounter 19. She'll reach out, tell them she's found a tunnel with some signs in the sewers, which will lead the party to finding the hideout. So anyway, once you get there, if Amanda knows about the adventures, she's going to hide in this little stone arch in the wall and try to surprise them. If she doesn't, she won't try to surprise them. But above it, there's an invisible watcher, which is where the arcane eye comes into play. So there's a stone eye, so either way, when the players get there, it will boom out, you were followed, and they'll still have to fight Amanda. And once Amanda's done, you've got a nice little thing here. It does say remind them about the sending stone if they've not already used it, and then the players can choose to wait for reinforcements or press onwards. Ask them for their choice now, because that's going to affect the second adventure. Excellent. If the party does choose to fight this guy, here you've got the stat block for the bearded devil. Who's this nice guy here with the beard? The beard's one of his actions, so he's got a multi-attack. They make a beard attack and a glaive attack every round. It's a fairly dangerous damage over time. The beard can poison you and the glaive can basically wound you, so you take wound damage every turn. And quite powerful as well, like with a challenge free rating. So I got a little bit ahead of myself there, going over the page. Actually, the possessed cultist, so that's what you need to fight first if you fight that guy. But then when the possessed cult is defeated, when it's possessed, then the bearded devil shows up. And down here we have an infernal fanatic, and this is the stat block. It's a general stat block for them, but it's also going to be what we'll use for Amanda when she fights us. But those two fights, that's all we've got for the combat in this issue before we wait for backup or just press on, where we might introduce our new Paladin character. So we have Oshog Bakok, the Orc Paladin, who's a spy who's going to come join us. And just quickly looking over, we can see down here spellcasting explained better. So they'll know 16 first level spells. I think that's all the spells. So I think the Paladin knows all the spells from the start. Prepare up to 4 of them and can cast 2 have 2 first level spell slots anyway. Because she'll either use them for casting that or we'll use it for the Divine Smite action that she's got. With a bit of an odd thing here, this short sword's a melee weapon but doesn't have any of the strength bonus, unlike the great sword, which it should do. I'm not sure why it doesn't, and I'll cover it in a later video, but some of these items are a bit off too. And on the back page here, we can just see all of the spells. So as a Paladin, she only knows first level spells. She doesn't get any cantrips, it looks like. Or at least not at the moment, maybe some more later, but just for now, she's got the entire list of spells from the spellbook. So if we get our first level spellbook here, you can see that basically there, she's got everything from the Paladin list. +5 spell attack bonus and a 13 spell save DC. And that's the issue. Well, that's issue 21 done and dusted. Issue 22 to come, when we're going to wrap up with our second part of the encounter and the final one of Adventure 2. As per normal, if you stay around this far, there'll be some links popping up. So the ones there to follow this magazine when they're ready, the ones here to follow the series when it's ready. Thanks for watching and hope to catch you soon.